Yes, I think the first stage is to accept this paradox that fake news is real.
Fake news is real.
Yes, and people should stop brushing it off and saying things like, there's no smoke without fire. Believe me, there's lots of smoke, no fire, not even a little flicker of a fire. Because as I said from the beginning, we've got to recognize that we're dealing with a human phenomenon. And it's not a new thing, by the way. Let's always remember that. Even the so-called straight media has not been above, shall we say, jazzing up news, twisting news slightly, simply to carry out their own personal house, shall we say, ideology or politics or whatever. This we're used to. And in this country especially, where sometimes when journalists are sent out to cover events, one person can be responsible for an entire nation being disinformed, because the other journalists would take their note from one. It's part of this sort of camaraderie. I couldn't come, I went to see my girlfriend, so what happened? And then they copy exactly the same thing. So you see all the media, they're carrying this. And so what do you expect the man in the street to believe? He's read it in The Guardian, he's read it in Punch, he's read it in Nation, etc., and Vanguard, and This Day. So they check, and they find exactly the same thing. Now, what we're having today is that technology has catapulted this on a level and in a dimension which we find very difficult to cope with. Individuals who had no voices before have been empowered suddenly. Every individual is now a journalist, is an editor, is a promoter, is in fact a publisher. There's competition to be the first to comment, on this. So the 419ers, like that character I've just mentioned, who sleep in cafes, they want to comment. They are bored in between carrying out their nefarious activity of milking banks and unsuspecting business people. What do they do in between? They're bored. They're waiting for their victim. So they sit in these cyber cafes, and so they be the first to comment. And then it proliferates, it continues. So we're dealing actually with a problem of technology, largely here. And that means that we've got to fight fire with fire. We've got to use technology to fight this menace. In addition, we must stop treating it like a domestic malfeasance, like a domestic quarrel. As I said at the beginning, it's dangerous. It should be treated as a crime. When we pin down, and that's not all that difficult from what I've been working on, when we pin down one such criminal, it's got to be a case for Interpol, because they move all over the place. They have addresses all over the place, and they live in virtual space. So we've got to counter that somehow. They've got to be advertised as criminals, and with the power of police to arrest them anywhere. When there's a complaint, and I write, as I did, for instance, to the Inspector General of Police, not this one, but one before, and complain about something, and I said, this has to do with security, my personal security, community security, the security of society. So when I write a letter like that, I expect at the very least a reply, instead of which, absolute silence. Wow. Till today, not even acknowledgement. Sent another letter. So it's being treated like a pimple. I say we're dealing with cancer here, and the responsibility is every single individual. Now, I was able to use, for instance, just ordinary people like you here to assist me in tracking down some of these fake pages and so on. Writers, I use them. It was a writer, for instance, who eventually contacted this fellow and said, Prof is angry. Better take this thing down. And then he sent that letter. He wants to honor the literary
So we can
icon.
police ourselves too.
I'm asking to be honored. I haven't got 1% of all the business he's been doing with my name up till now. He didn't even honor me with one zloty from Poland. But it's got to be a collective responsibility. Psychiatrists, psychologists have got to be involved in this, because some of them are really sick. As I said, I get sent things, link, and I chat. And I said, are these human beings who are responsible for this kind of garbage? And above all, we've got to treat it like a crime. When elections are coming, they become even more dangerous.